Okay, issue 4, Veep decision.
Mr. President,
Joe Biden says he'll announce his vice presidential running mate next week. At the top of the speculation ticket is the U.S. Senator and former Democratic presidential primary contender Kamala Harris. But as Team Biden consider their strong position in the polls, they also fear giving the president any new ammunition to use with independent voters. Also in the campaign news this week, President Trump advanced his more conciliatory approach towards the coronavirus crisis. His campaign hopes this kinder and gentler Trump will persuade undecided voters to give the president a second look.
All right, Dave, do you think it's going to be Kamala Harris? And if not her, who do you think it will be? And do you think she's a good pick if she is the pick?
I think it's probably her or Susan Rice. I thought in 2016, Hillary Clinton made a mistake picking Tim Kaine. And I wrote at the time and still believe that the reasons she did wasn't to get votes, but because she thought he would be a good fit in the White House, that she assumed she was going to win. She had issues with Al Gore when Bill Clinton was president, so I think she knew that Kaine. So I think Rice is that pick. Rice is the pick. If Biden thinks he's won, Susan Rice would be great in his White House, be a third term of Obama. But I think Kamala Harris is a better political pick. So I think if she still thinks this is a fight, I think she's better off with Harris.
Okay, Eleanor.
I don't really have a particular preference, and I'm looking at Joe Biden and I'm looking at the numbers, and I don't think the vice president pick is not a life raft for him. He's doing fine. All the polls show they all add roughly like 0 to the ticket. So, and I agree with you that Hillary wanted a governing partner, and I think Biden does too. I don't know that Susan Rice necessarily fits that bill. I kind of like Karen Bass, and she's getting a second look. She was the Speaker of the California House before she came to Washington. She also has a big tragedy in her life, which puts her on a par with Biden. She lost her only daughter and her son-in-law in a car accident. She gets along with Republicans. The Republican leader in the House says she's his favorite Democrat. I think there's a lot to say about her, plus the fact she's 67, doesn't seem to have any real presidential ambition. So you got all those young, mainly guys, on the bench in the Democratic Party who would like the fact that if Biden does not seek a second term, that there's not necessarily an heir apparent going into 2024. But I'm gonna let Biden pick whoever he wants, and I'm sure it'll be fine. They're all fine. Everybody under consideration is qualified.
Eleanor, you're saying that whoever Biden picks, you'll probably vote for him. You don't think you might sway for President Trump?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people feel that way. So yeah, exactly.
All right, Pat.
Joe Biden, if he wins, will take office as the oldest president in American history. Not only that, he will be older than Ronald Reagan, who was previously the oldest president when Reagan left office after 2 terms. Second, I know Eleanor will disagree, but Joe has shown real problems in his mental and verbal capacities, which suggests deterioration. So people are going to start talking about the 25th Amendment, and they're going to be talking about who is best to take the leadership of the American Republic. And why is it constantly a talk that this has got to be about the person of color rather than the person who's going to lead the United States? That is going to be a major avenue of attack for the Democrats if Biden picks someone, I think, other than Kamala Harris, who at least is a United States senator.
Yeah, attack for the Republicans. But Clarence, your thoughts?
Well, so far the Republicans have been trying every kind of attack on Biden, and his numbers either stay stable or they keep going up. So we know he doesn't seem to need to worry about coming out of his basement right now. And there's been talk of the 25th Amendment for the current president too, for that matter. So right. I don't find that to be very daunting. No, I think all of the candidates who have been mentioned would be good ones. Also, like Val Demings from Florida. She's Black, she's a former police chief, and she's from Florida, a state with a lot of electoral votes. So I'd say there's a wide range of choices here.
Yeah, I would just point out the president is bragging about taking this test where he he remembers 5 words: person, woman, man, camera, TV. I think Biden can do that too. So I wouldn't pick a fight on that terrain right now.
How would he do in the second test?
The president wants to have them both sit down and do a test, which is,
Okay.
I'd buy tickets and popcorn for that. Okay.
David, is there a risk though for Democrats that if they pick someone, that if Joe Biden picks someone who is seen not in the vein that he is broadly seen, which is perhaps a centrist Democrat, friendly with Republicans, reliable old Joe, that they might entertain President Trump's narrative that the Democratic Party is now controlled by the far left? I mean, do you think that risk factor is real, or is that just something the Trump campaign has dreamt up because they're so far behind in the polls?
I mean, I think with the list of probable candidates that we have right now, I don't think that's too much of a risk. You know, if anything, Harris is probably going to get attacked for her former positions in terms of criminal justice and stuff. But look, the broader point, yes, I mean that's going to be a very big deal because, and it'll be interesting to see when the actual platform comes out, because it does seem that the far left has gotten some pretty significant victories, and that they really have moved the party much farther to the left, even if Joe Biden isn't physically there.
You know, Eleanor, I saw you sort of reacting to that. I mean, do you think this? Do you think? Yeah.
Well, the platform that he and Bernie Sanders and a lot of other people worked out is public. The president has already tried to turn that into a a right-wing coup. It's reasonable policy on climate change and reasonable policy on building America back. In fact, he's stolen a lot of the issues from the president. The president has delivered on infrastructure or manufacturing, and Biden has actually come up with some plans that are thought through and that would be achievable if the Democrats win the Senate. And it looks now like the Democrats have a very good chance of sweeping the Senate if you look at all of the polls in those states, because generally if Biden is able to sweep the top of this ticket, you know, all those swing state senators will come along. In 2008, when Obama won, all the swing seats fell Democratic. Susan Collins was the only one that remained. And Pat will remember 1980 when Reagan came in and swept in 12 Senate seats. The first time the Republicans gained control of the Senate in 26 years. It was a complete surprise. Every one of those swing state senators toppled. So, I mean, I don't want to get too overconfident this soon, but I think the possibility exists that Biden could have a governing coalition if he is elected president.
Pat, your thoughts on that? But I also want to ask you, Pat, you know, to what degree do you think, as President Trump seems to be leaning towards the understanding that he may lose or is likely to lose his China policy, he's empowering Mike Pompeo, which we talked about last week on that hawkish China line, as a kind of retaliation against China for the virus really essentially being a causal factor in his collapsing poll numbers?
Well, first, I remember 1980, oh happy day. In 1986, I was on the road with Ronald Reagan in the White House. Can't believe the slaughter that occurred. I think we lost 10 Senate seats that year. It does seem to me that Pompeo and the other members of the cabinet are basically addressing an issue moving towards something of a Cold War, not a hot war, but a Cold War with China. And I just don't know the president's thinking on that, because I can't believe he wants to engage in any kind of shooting war in the South China Sea. But I don't know. I mean, for me, it's hard to see where this goes and where it ends and where it stops with the Chinese, because we're rubbing their noses in a lot of the nonsense and garbage they've been doing, and deservedly so. But where does it end? I mean, does it end like Nixon and others, where you move tough and hard, and all of a sudden now let's cut a deal? But I just don't know where they're going, Tom. But I'm apprehensive about it.
Clarence, your thoughts either on China or the congressional races that Eleanor suggests, which would be so important to be able to give the Democratic Party the ability to pass through some of these bigger ticket items that perhaps have been pushed by the Bernie people.
Yes, well, I think that's quite possible. At the same time, I remember the last 2 times the Democrats were able to have the executive and both houses of Congress. They didn't keep them very long, at least as far as keeping all three. So I know that whatever happens, they've got to be wise and prudent about staying on that middle course. As far as China goes, it's well, I think President Trump is, for one thing, concerned that Joe Biden sounds tougher than he does, and he doesn't allow that. That's something that goes against the forces of nature. And at the same time, Americans don't seem to care a whole heck of a lot, which is typical. Americans, I can't remember when the election has turned on foreign policy unless it involved a war we were engaged in at the time. And so this is something, maybe you have a different view.
Well, Dave, I'll give you the concluding comment here, and I think we've got about a minute 15 seconds. But do you think, though, that the China issue is perhaps one area where the sort of Nikki Haley, Josh Hawley future of the party is actually unified?
Oh yeah, not only are they unified, but there is a wing of the Conservative Party that is extremely fired up about this fight, and it is, in a sense, it's the old Reform Party wing that Trump was able to galvanize to take the White House. And our corporations are so tied into China at this point that if we don't break that, we're really going to be in trouble. So we, as Pat's been pointing out for years, there's concentration camps, and the NBA doesn't want to deal with it. They want to play basketball games over there. So, oh yeah, it's a big issue, and it's going to stay one.